If you feel confused on how to do SEO for your Etsy print-on-demand listings, then as a 7-figure seller, let me just simplify it for you, because overcomplicating SEO is one of the fastest things to get lost in the noise. Let's say that you sell the Bella Canvas 3001 here, this shirt. This is personally the shirt that I've sold the most here on Printify. And then you're targeting the flamingo niche. This is typically the example that I use, but it's because it makes it so clear on how to actually use SEO. Let's just search for a flamingo shirt here. The key thing with this, like if I search for flamingo shirt here, I'm expecting a flamingo shirt, something very, very specific. Now, this is also a bird, but if I just search for bird, it's way too broad and it doesn't match the thing that we're actually selling exactly. If I wanted to do a flamingo shirt, this is what I'm like expecting. If I search for bird shirt, like this can be it's way too broad, because this can mean a bluebird, it can mean a raven, it can mean a flamingo, it can be any type of bird there is basically. It's just way too broad when you make a specific flamingo shirt. And this applies to basically anything too. Like for instance, if you make a teacher shirt and you're making a first grade teacher shirt, the SEO needs to say first grade teacher shirt or first grade teacher t-shirt or gift for first grade teacher, not just gift for teacher. Because not every teacher wants a first grade teacher shirt, if that makes sense. In the same way that not all bird lovers wants a flamingo shirt, which is why we always got to use the word flamingo in every single word when it comes to the actual list, like listing itself. It needs to be hyper targeted because it's way too broad otherwise. And a big problem with that too is that if you want to use Etsy ads, we'll talk more about that later in this video too. But if you ever want to use Etsy ads, then they will index you for really, really, really broad keywords that are related to bird, not to flamingo. But if you only use flamingo, like the word flamingo in your flamingo listings, they will index you for related queries to flamingo and not related queries to the word bird, which is why it's so important to just be hyper targeted with your SEO. Like don't name your flamingo design animal lover gift, name it flamingo lover gift. Don't name it bird shirt, name it flamingo shirt. Now, let's talk about ranking. So one of the biggest things here on Etsy, because you can see all of these results when I just search for flamingo shirts. And all of these different listings here on this first page all have a specific rank to them. And the only thing that Etsy really cares about at the end of the day is sales. Sales is the main thing that determines how far up on these search results you are. So where you're actually placed in these results is fully determined by your rank. And your rank is like almost like 99% determined by your sales. The sales is the main thing that actually like creates your rank. Now, one of the biggest levers that we can actually pull when we do print on demand here on marketplaces is that we can actually price our items at a lower price to increase rank. Because what I've found generally with my whole POD journey is that the lower price you have, the more sales you do. Whereas the higher price you have, the lower sales you do, but the more profit overall you make. Which is why I think it's so important as you list something new that you list it at a break-even price. Now, what is break-even pricing? So if I just use this trusty calculator right here, not that one, whoopsie daisy. Like if I'm selling the Bella Canvas 3001 here, as I mentioned, I generally just use SwiftPOD or Monster Digital nowadays. I am experimenting a lot with print of a choice, but for 99% of people, I would just recommend to have that setting off and just do Monster Digital and SwiftPOD when you're doing clothing, as there's the most reliable partners for sure on this platform. Now, the shirt costs $9.13 plus $4.75. This is with Printify Premium, but if you're ever going to do this seriously, you need Printify Premium in all honesty, because the margins are so vastly different. So the shirt costs $13.88. So when I talk about break-even pricing, we need some kind of buffer, because otherwise we will lose money on each sale. So generally speaking, again, this is not a pricing video. I have a whole video about that here if you want to look at that. But generally, you want to get at least $2 to $4 in profit each time you make a sale, because you need some buffers so you're not going into the red. Because if you sell like an item for maybe like this, say like $16, this will, what I found when I actually use this type of pricing, I just went into the red way too much. What you want to do is that you generally want to earn about $2 to $4 in margin every time you make a sale. So a net profit of $2.83, like selling your item at like your Bella Canvas 3001. If you're using, for instance, free shipping as your shipping model, then earning $2.83 each time you make a sale is perfect. Because the key thing is that you want to have a margin between $2 to $4 each time you make a sale, and just to cover any like weird expenses and like unforeseen stuff that can happen. This can be your Etsy ads. This can be that you have to make a refund. This could be anything that can happen. So $2 to $4 will cover you in most areas when you are using break-even pricing. But the reason again why we're using it and why it's so important is because it determines so much if we get initial sales when we list something on Etsy. Because when we list something on Etsy, like we initially get a boost when we list something on Etsy. If we pair that with break-even pricing, the likelihood, like if someone actually wants the design that you made, it's based on research and you have a really competitive price, even though you might not make money off of it, like in the beginning, it's better to just get the rank. So if you pair that with listing something and it has a boost plus the break-even pricing, that means it will have the best railroad, so to speak, to actually make the sales as long as the person wants the design. Because at the end of the day, it's always going to be the design that is the final determinator if you make sales or not. Now, the key thing with break-even pricing is that like we only do this initially to gain some initial traction, which basically means that once we hit one of two metrics, then we'll bump it up to profit pricing. And I'll get into what that means in a sec. But if a listing has hit either 10 or 15 sales from when you listed it, so like recently, basically, that it's actually done 10 or 15 sales, or a 50% visibility score here on Everbee. Like let's say that I look at this shirt here, for instance. This one, it has a visibility score right here tied to the listing itself. If this number says 50% or more, or you get 10 to 15 sales, because sometimes I've just noticed that you get like 8 sales and then it's like 60% of visibility score. In that case, you can bump it up to profit pricing. But one of those two metrics, the listing has to hit in order to be put on profit pricing, if that makes sense, because then you still have the rank that you need to continuously make sales, but with a higher profit margin. And just to give you like an example, if for a smaller listing, for instance, let's take this one, for instance, like this one says 48%. Again, if this says 50% or more, or the listing itself has 10 to 15 sales, recently, that's when you put it up on profit pricing. The key thing to know is this visibility score is what I found is it's relative to the niches you're in, but also the sales. So let's say that you're making a ton of sales in a small niche, then it can still give you like a really low number, which is why it's key to also have the 10 to 15 sales metric. But on the flip side, like let's say that you're in a huge niche and you've gotten like 2 sales, but you're in a major big niche, this can actually like say 70% just out of those 2 sales. Like it has to be relative to each other. So like if you get 8 sales and then it's like 60%, then put it up. If you get like 2 sales and then it's like 100% in visibility score, then there's something, it's tracking something like weirdly, and you should probably wait a little bit before you actually put it up on profit pricing, because it's also relative to the niche you're in. So either of those metrics, but always use your common sense when doing this. Like if it's gotten 2 sales and it's up at like 100% visibility score, keep it there on break-even pricing until you at least get like 7 or 8 sales, and then put it up, if that makes sense. Now, once you've hit the metrics, either a 50% visibility score on Everbee or 10 to 15 sales on the listing, but generally it's usually like 10 sales plus a 50% visibility score here on Everbee. Once you've hit like these metrics, either a 50% visibility score on Everbee and generally around 10 sales along with that, that's when you actually put it up to profit pricing. And what profit pricing in my mind is, like I really believe in like pricing low in the beginning to get the rank and then pricing high to get the profit. Because again, at the end of the day, the profit is our oxygen. We need that to have a sustainable business. So the shirt, as I mentioned, it costs $13.88. Let's say that we price it at like $25.99. This is perfect, $25.99. This is more what I would see in like a healthy profit margin, $24.99 or like $24.99. Because again, it's absolutely high. People buy the shirts at this price all the time. And I really know that it like feels really scary to price your item this high. But if you have something that people want, because again, like how people consume this whole platform is that they actually are searching for a specific thing. Like if they search for Father's Day gifts, they are looking for a Father's Day gift. If they want like a Father's Day t-shirt, then that's what they actually want. And you're providing that to them. So you're providing a really good service to someone who wants the thing. And you shouldn't be afraid to price it where you want it to be priced. Like once you've actually achieved rank, that's when you just put it up to profit pricing, which again, in this case is around $25.99 for a shirt if you use the free shipping model. And just to preface that's about a 35% margin if you do $25.99. If you feel that it's way too much, then try $24.99 in that case. Like you need to be at least At a minimum, when it comes to profit pricing, this needs to be at minimum a 30% margin. You can't go under that. So ensure that this is at minimum 30% if you ever want to do profit pricing, because again, the profit is our oxygen and that's what keeps our business sustainable. Now, I also want to cover one more thing, and that's that ads nowadays have become so expensive that for the whole year of 2025, I haven't even like used ads myself, but I've still like made a lot of revenue. Like I make less revenue than I did last year, but I'm making 35% net margins like overall for all of my products. Because again, like I'm always between the 30 to 40% margin when I list something and have something at profit pricing. And you can sell at that price as long as the people actually want your items. But a key thing just to this whole thing has always been that like you have that kind of margin so that you can spend like 9 to 10% of your revenue can actually then be spent on ads to scale your business. That's always how I have like 9 to 11% has been like the cost of my running my ads when it comes to Etsy. But nowadays it's so expensive. Like I'm just seeing that all around. Like when I'm talking to friends or students of mine in the creative seller mentorship, I just find that the ads are just way too expensive. So nowadays I would honestly like deter you from using ads, at least for the time being when it's so expensive, because in whichever niche you're in, it just like the cost is just so high. A lot of the times you're paying like over $1 per click, which is just crazy for these like really weird small niches all over the place. So not worth using it, but you can still make a lot of like good traction if you list your items at a break-even price when you list them. Just make sure that you actually price them like profitably later on. But if you want to know more about this whole ads debacle, I'll talk about that in this video right here, because again, like I've tested a lot of like ads stuff this year to see if I can make them work. But either way, I'm just finding that they're just way too expensive. It feels like Etsy has driven the price up for using their ads overall. But if anything changes for the future, I'll make sure to let you know and make a video on it later on. But yeah, that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.